We're going to open the Human Services meeting, and we have a motion to do the minutes, please. Dan, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go down to public. Oh, hey, Tina. Glad you're here. We have a complaint from my husband about the fair employees that are like this.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good. Yeah, the kids love them. That was great. Wonderful job.
Right.
I think I've just seen what a wonderful public health department at the fair. We got a lot of good information. Yeah, it's great. It was wonderful. We'll get forward.
First thing I have is an overnight stay request for myself. It's the Nice HO Public Health Leaders Summit. It's in Watkins Glen this year, so it'd be a 2-night overstay or stay over. The Nice HO funds the room and the conference, so it would really just be miscellaneous tolls, gas, things like that. That would be the expense for that. So just looking for.
Are you there for the road race? Or?
No, I won't run the race. They do have a beautiful park there, though.
So we have a motion, we'll get a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Thank you. The next thing I have is the chronic disease self-management program. We were approached by, that's a program that I've mentioned in previous meetings. We were approached by the North Country Healthy Heart Network to have a shared service agreement with them. And they received a grant where they could reimburse us for providing the classes. So it'd be $150 per person that we would get reimbursed for everybody enrolled, and then another $50 for anybody that completed the class. So we do have a class scheduled right now that's starting in October over at Burgoyne. So I'm just looking for permission to go forward with the shared service agreement. I did have Roger review it. He had a few questions which we were able to resolve with them. So I'm just looking for permission to move forward with that agreement.
Motion. A second, Cassie. Thank you. Any other questions? On favor?
Okay. Thank you. And we're finally getting caught up. We have our 2022 annual report. So I have the executive summary here. So I'll just get this around. In the full report, I have more too. Sure. Yep.
Yes.
Make sure to give you my copy. Oh, you got extras too? Does anybody over there? There you go. This is the executive summary report, so it's really a summary for the year. We do have a full report as well. That's many more pages, which would be on our both will be on our website after the meeting. So I'm going to start very similar to the one that I had presented last month for the previous year. On page 2, the health service unit summary of our visits. We did screen 1,100 children for, well, we didn't screen them. 1,100 children were screened for lead poisoning. We ended up having to do cases on 120 of those. And then we made 6 home visits for the children that were above 10. We are required to go out with a home visit on those. Our other statistics are there. Over to the right is obviously a map of the county showing where we made our actual home visits. That also includes, our maternal child health visits for new moms and babies, our lead visits, and also we have another program called Child Find through our early intervention program. So those numbers are included there as well. And then the next pages get into more detail. On page 3 is our funding. So that the top portion of that is our Article 6 state aid funding. The numbers there look a little skewed because of COVID. So you'll see that the 2022, the health admin costs are quite a bit more than they were in 2021, but that's because the disease control number, it kind of flip-flopped. In 2021, we were doing the health admin costs, we're doing a lot more communicable disease, chronic disease work due to COVID. So that's why the numbers look a little funny there. Same thing with environmental health. That's our lead program and our injury prevention program. We were really able to get back out there and start doing stuff in 2022 relating to those programs. So that's why there's kind of flip-flopping across there. So when we do the 2023, they should be more in line with the 2022 figures. 2021 was, as we know, COVID. Down below are the expenditures and the revenue for 2022 for our department. So expenditures versus revenue, it ends up being a net cost of $356,000, and that's after all the revenue and the grants we receive for our programs. The next page, it talks about our immunization action plan. We were able to go out to 4 farms in 2022 to help those farm workers get up to date for the ones that wanted vaccine. And we do that through our VFA program. So that vaccine is supplied to us by the state. More. Oh, sorry.
You visited 4 farms, how many are you facing?
Eliza, she.
I'm gonna say, I think at each farm we vaccinated about 10 to 13 people, and some of them got multiple vaccines, different things from COVID to flu to like hepatitis vaccine, things like that.
What percentage would that be? Approximately, like was it 50% of the workers?
I don't know what the total workers were, but a couple of the big firms we had, I would say, very good participation from their adult workforce.
Thank you.
The next page is on page 5 is our lead poisoning prevention program, which I talked about that. The number of children we serve there at the beginning that was under the unit summary. So that's just more information on what the requirements are for the lead poisoning program. Same thing on the next page, our maternal child health program just talks about what that program entails and what we're responsible for under the within the department. The next page, page 7, is our early intervention program, which we've talked about before. Down below are the number of children that were served. So in 2022, we served 225 children. 149 were evaluated and 101 qualified for services. So that program's statistics are broken out there. And the next is our preschool program, which is for the 3 to 5 year olds. And in that program, it doesn't show on here the number of children that were served, but we did serve in they go by school year. So in the 2022-2023 school year, we served 198 children within that program, compared to 170 in the 21-22 school year. So that program is continuing to increase. I do think it has something to do with COVID, with people trying to get caught up. Hi.
One more, and maybe it's, I had a late night last night, but you got 101 kids qualified and 225 served. How did you do that?
Yeah, so the 225 served, that also includes kids that are already in the program.
Okay.
So they carry over to the next year. And then 101 new kids qualified for 2022.
120 so already in the program.
Right. Hi.
Okay, so that links to the lead poisoning, is that every child and the mother is tested. That's the way I read it.
Page
Every-
5.
All children and pregnant women.
Right,
Yes.
so like, if you're pregnant, maybe the next year, they get tested twice.
Yeah, I believe so. They get
Yeah,
tested
so
for pregnancy.
pregnant women usually get tested every pregnancy through their prenatal care, and then children are tested mandatory at age 1 and 2. And any other time that before the age of 6, I believe, if they have risk factors, or if they're living in an old house, a house is being renovated that they're living in. Sometimes older children also get tested if there's a report of some type of exposure.
Is there a point where lead will be eradicated? I mean, you haven't able lead-based agents. But then I know a lot of the stuff coming in from China was still lead.
Yeah, I mean, we get recalls and reports, you know, a lot of certain products that are recalled that are coming from other places that do have lead on them or in them. The other thing is, I mean, we're working on it, and even from a federal level, that's why they're doing the water service, you know, the lead
Yeah.
service lines to try to eliminate the lead that's coming from those as well.
Right.
So I think there's, even though lead paint was, you know, there are other places where there is lead exposure as well.
And how do you not miss children or mothers? How,
So we have every doctor that does lead testing has to load the results into what's called lead web. And that's where we get our reports, where a
but
child is
there's
elevated.
kids that are born that never see a doctor and.
There may be.
There may be.
So it's not like,
Right,
There's a lot of women who don't get prenatal care.
that's what I mean.
so those people would
So
be
the
missed,
number is not really the total population, it's just whoever's going.
whoever comes through.
And I think, I'm not wrong, the range is changed.
Yes, it used to be 10 mil,
Micrograms per deciliter.
right, it used to be 10 was the cutoff where we would have to do some sort of follow-up if the child tested above 10. Back in October of 2019, they changed, the state lowered that to a 5, which really almost doubled our workload as far as for the program without any additional funding to go towards that. So between 5 and 10 now we have to do education and get a hold of the parent. Anything above 10 is that we're required to make a home visit with the Glens Falls Regional Office. So the Glens Falls Regional Office is involved because they do the environmental piece. They'll go into the home while we're focusing on the person, they're focusing on the environment around it to try to find out where the lead's coming from.
So the 6 home visits you did are the result of that? or
Yes.
Above that?
Right.
So that number must be going down as a lot other than during COVID, right?
Yeah, we didn't make, well, no, we didn't, unless it was an extreme circumstance.
And if they're over 5, we do make a referral to the environmental office. Environmental office can also go out, they do their assessment if it's over 5. Parents also can refuse to have an environmental assessment or home visit in certain situations for this too. And then we can just monitor the performance.
If you go to a pediatrician in Warren County, does it go back to?
Comes back to us.
Yeah,
Yep, all over the state, Vermont, all over the city.
it's where they live. It's where the public health.
Right.
Well, since you brought it up, and this is kind of a segue to go back to page 2.
Mhm.
I'm trying to understand the visit cycle. You know?
Right,
Now, if you have to go visit someone in a town because of a lead issue,
Mhm.
is that on this?
it is.
Okay, I didn't see that part of it, so. What else trips that beside? I mean, do you get phone calls in, or is it through different programs that you're gonna call to go out to?
For just lead or for any of our
Anything.
programs, our referrals come from many different sources.
Is that what it just sort of?
Yeah, so we get referrals from, if it's related to our maternal health program, it's usually through Glens Falls Hospital or Saratoga Hospital. We do outreach with them to let them know about our program so they can refer new moms and babies to us. Sometimes it's the physician, the baby's physician that may put in a referral and say, you know, this baby's failing to thrive. You know, we want you to go out and do weight checks. And so we'll get them that way. People can self-refer. Sometimes we'll
That
get
leads
referrals.
me up to the next question.
Yeah.
It seems like some of the towns are underserved. You see, half the towns you've never had to go visit them. And I'm not questioning you, but questioning why are they never, how come there isn't at least one in one particular town?
Mhm.
What is there a flaw in the system, or is
No,
there that super healthy farmer group?
I don't want to blame everything on COVID, but it did really hamper our home visiting program. So we are trying to get back out there. We visited both Glens Falls Hospital and Saratoga Hospital to remind them about our programs. People have to give permission to give us the referral. If it's coming from the hospital, they have to sign off that yes, they'd like a visit from public health. Sometimes I think there's a little bit of hesitancy with people because they don't realize that we're not like Child Protective, we are public health. So we have a hard time getting people to either answer the phone when we call, or they refuse services when we do get a hold of them. And then we mail education. So even though we're not making a home visit, we are still mailing an education packet to every referral that we get, either through the hospital or wherever we get it from. If they don't accept one of our visits, we do mail them an education packet as well.
The numbers don't match, so like some of them are multiple, that's the case.
As far as to the column on the left, I was noticing that as well when I was looking at this, and I think, well, I know it's because there's visits in here that aren't in this thing. There's pilot plan visits, yeah. But we will go to, I mean, we're not, any referral we get and they're willing to accept a home visit, we will go. We don't refuse care to anyone based on,
Oh, I didn't think you. did it.
payer
I wonder what trip to make.
Yep.
I know it's all the ones that are on here all have villages and the ones that aren't on here that are blank have no villages. Other receive White Creek and King have been spoken.
They'll just only go existent time.
I think we're on page 9. Our 2022 communicable and infectious disease data. We are responsible for following up on communicable diseases. So as you can see, the COVID was the big one for 2022. It was actually an increase from 2021 by about 3,000 cases. As we know, the flu season was big in 2022. So those numbers are listed there as well. Just as a comparison, in 2021, we had 93 cases of flu. In 2022, we had almost 1,700. And then I also wanted to point out the Lyme disease. We had 31 cases of Lyme in 2021 and 274 in 2022. So that is a drastic increase there for Lyme disease. And that is continuing, unfortunately, into 2023.
Anaplasmosis must be just as bad.
Yep, anaplasmosis, it kind of did a flip-flop. So for the reports that we received, anaplasmosis in 2022, we had 53. And in 2021, we had 116. So we did have more anaplasmosis in 2021 than we did Lyme, and that flip-flop for 2022.
So we're going to see it like this year. I mean, you don't have those numbers here, but it's been a very humid summer. Are those numbers tied in?
Yes,
How you would expect?
yes,
I haven't seen
yeah,
this year. You can't go out at all.
yeah. It's, yeah, I mean, every day we're getting multiple.
I'm not saying that must be.
Are you working on your feet running tractor?
You think I ran all of them?
I'm shorter than the weeds.
I wasn't gonna go.
Then on page 10, the top portion there, talking about Lyme and tick-borne diseases, and as you can see, the prevalent disease in 2022 was Lyme. And then we do have some cases of babiosis and then of course the anaplasmosis.
So what's the minor one that we have? What's the difference with that one?
The symptoms are very similar. It's just a different disease that the tick carries. And we do see cases of that as well in our area, just not as prevalent as the Lyme and anaplasmosis.
Tina, when they bring that forward, many people have all three in their panels. And do you get that information or you just get the primary?
I believe
We have more than one.
we get all of them. Yeah. Thanks. And then, under the sexually transmitted diseases, I just want to mention there, we are back to doing our clinics. I think I may have brought that up previously. We do partner with Warren County on that, and that is where the clinic is held. It is by appointment only, and then Warren County partners with Hudson Headwaters. They have a physician that comes in and is present at that clinic if we have appointments. And then the next page 11, is our rabies program, which is also very busy. We had 350 calls regarding animal bites or just people looking for guidance, on exposure. We sent 45 animals for testing. 20 of those were domestic animals, and 25 were considered wildlife animals. And I do have the breakout for that. Eliza pulled those numbers. No lemurs. No, we don't want to go back there. We did have a weasel though. So the animals that were tested in 2022, we had 11 cats, 9 dogs, 17 bats, 4 raccoons, 2 weasels, a deer, a woodchuck, a fisher, and a fox.
Who pays for the testing?
The state pays for that. We send all of our specimens to Wadsworth down in Albany. The preparation of the testing, so if it has to go to a vet to be prepped, we pay for that, the county. But we do have a rabies grant that offsets those costs.
Now, do they have to be euthanized before they're sent? Or
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
It's on the habit, so, yeah.
Well, I'm thinking more along the lines of the cats and the dogs.
Well, there's gonna be some rain, so once that's
Yeah,
got.
you have to euthanize them because rabies is a central nervous.
Yeah, but only 6 were found guilty.
Yep, 6 were positive.
Sometimes that's what's amazing.
Yeah. So out of the 6 that we had positive, we had 1 bat positive, 1 cat positive, a fox, and a raccoon. Or I'm sorry, 3 raccoons. So those were our positive animals in 2022 for rabies. So we were back to doing our vaccination clinics, which was a great thing for the community. We vaccinated 700 animals at 10 of our clinics throughout the county. So that was good to be back out there doing them. And then we had 28 people who went for post-exposure vaccination. So next page is our health education page. It lists out all the different programs that our health educators are working on, and also our fellows. They contribute a lot to these programs as well. So they're all listed there, and how many people we serve are listed in the program highlights there. So it was really great to be back out doing those programs as well in 2022. On the next page is our WIC program. As you know, it's Spencer WIC. So in 2022, their average participation was about 1,100 clients per month. And in 2023, they're averaging about 1,200 a month. So they are seeing an uptick there and getting back to their numbers, pre-COVID. And then the next page is our COVID response for 2022. We held 101 vaccination clinics in 2022. It shows the breakout of which vaccine we gave, which majority of what we give is Moderna. Right now, that's all we give is Moderna. And then on the bottom, it shows how many vaccines were actually administered throughout the year. So almost 2,000, no, 1,100, sorry. And that's it for the annual report. And again, that's just the executive summary. And that'll be posted on our website for anybody else that, would like to take a look at that.
And on the COVID, people are coming into the office. We'll see if we have tests.
Okay.
Yeah, the past couple of weeks, if anybody else is getting that. But the ones we have, are they expired?
So there's a lot number on them, that you should look up online. So we just did that in our office yesterday. We have a few that are gonna expire September 1st.
Yeah.
And then we have another box, that got extended until December of 2023. So we do have that one box left. I did speak with, Tim yesterday and asked if we were gonna be able to order more, from the state. He didn't think that the state had any available, for us to be able to get. But then there was a governor's press release last night that said to contact your local health department or your Office of Emergency Management for test kits. So it sounds like maybe the state might be getting some test kits that we'll be able to have, but it's kind of up in the air right now.
Or you're just gonna get on the phone call.
Right. So we'll wait and see. But definitely I know if Tim gets a shipment, he'll probably give them out like he did last time.
Also, for some reason, I'm thinking that if they call their insurance companies, they can actually receive COVID tests.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure about
they
that.
probably have to check with the insurance company, I'm not sure.
Might depend on the
On
insurance.
the insurance, they are available, the rapid test kits are available in pharmacies, and we do get reports of PCR tests, so urgent care's doctor's offices should have the capability to also be tested through your insurance.
Great, thank you. And one more question.
Sure.
Is there a new immunization that's coming out in September?
Yes. Yep, so there is a new COVID vaccine that's coming out. Right now, the one that's approved is a bivalent vaccine, and they're redoing, or they've issued a new vaccine, or they're going to be voting on a new vaccine in September that will be for the XBB variant that's out there right now. So it'll be considered a monovalent vaccine because it's for the one variant, but it still should give you immunity to some of the other variants that are out there. So the last we heard on our call this morning was the ACIP meeting, which is where they finalize it, is mid-September. So hopefully we'll have it by the end of September.
And that's an immunization.
It's considered a booster, I believe. It's just like the new vaccine.
New vaccine.
So I don't know what technically they're going to call it. And we
Each
have,
time the new vaccine comes out, the federal and state partners will give us what the guidelines are, who's
we can get it when, you
Yeah.
know, so.
And then they'll
Stay
also
tuned.
probably tell us
Yeah.
whether or not we can still administer the bivalent one that we do have. Last time they pulled the previous vaccine and only have a new one, so I don't know if they're doing that again.
It's kind of up in the air right now.
So we stay tuned.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very well done. Any other questions for Tina?
No, it was interesting to hear Weasel mentioned at the meeting because it's been years since Alan Brown and he was doing what he referred to as supervisor.
Had a good vacation, Brian did.
No, he was.
I have just a couple program updates. I wanted to let you know our early intervention wait list is looking better. We were able to recruit, I think I mentioned it last month as well. We have 2 children now that are on the wait list for speech, but that's down. It's down. We had 5 last month, so it's down to 2. And then we have 2 children on the wait list for occupational therapy, and that's down to 4. And then we have 5 children for physical therapy on the wait list, but that's down from 10 from last month. So we're working away at that and trying to get those kiddos the service that they need. And then I wanted to give you an update on WIC as well. They will be going back out into the community to their satellite clinics starting next week. So you should see them. So they have a schedule. The first Tuesday it's every Tuesday that they go out. So on the first Tuesday, they're in Cambridge. The second Tuesday, they're in Granville. The third Tuesday, they rotate between Greenwich and Salem. And then the fourth Tuesday, they're in Lake Hall. So you will be getting flyers to kind of hang out if it's in one of your communities, or we can send them to all the schedule. So if people see them in your towns, they know where the WIC clinics are going to be. And we'll also have that on our, on the website, and we'll push it out on Facebook as well. So people are aware that they're back out there in the community. So people don't have to travel as far. They didn't change the regulation that people can still do it over the phone, which is really what they're seeing at this point, because, you know, a lot of people don't have a way to get here, or they don't, you know, it's just much quicker and easier for them to do it over the phone. So, but they will be back out, and people can walk into those clinics. You don't need an appointment for those. So that's great news. And I think that was it. We are expecting to do our employee flu clinic as well. So we do have a portion of our private flu vaccine. So we're hoping to have it all in by the time we do the employee clinic. So it's October 17th from 2 to 4 is the date we have, and it'll be in the downstairs training rooms. So look, we'll be sending a link out for people to be able to sign up for that. And it's through our electronic system. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, because we bill insurance for our services, the insurance companies require us to re-credential with them every few years. So part of that re-credentialing process is to send them our most recent New York State Department of Health survey. We have not had a New York State Department of Health survey in over 36 months. So because of that, the insurance company will come and do their own survey. So it's really considered, it's really an audit. They call it a survey. So they're going to be coming on site, Empire Blue Cross. They contract with a company called Ovation Healthcare. So they'll be coming on site at Public Health on September 6th to do their review. What they really do is they go around, they get a tour of the building, and they really focus on our policy and procedures to make sure that they're all up to date, and that, you know, and then they'll look at a few patient records as well. So just to make sure you're all aware of that, and I will definitely report back, you know, on any findings there. So that's all I have.
Any questions?
Do we have a move date yet?
No. No move date.
25.
Thanks very much.
Rabies, they're guilty.
Good morning. I do have a couple of items that I'd like to share with you. Medicare open enrollment is approaching. It's October 15th through December 7th. At this time, we're planning to hold an event like we have in past years. It's called the Health and Wellness Fall Festival. And we're looking to hold that at the Kingsbury Firehouse on October 6th. And the reason why we do this is we invite the Medicare providers to come on site, and it allows the public the opportunity to speak with the various Medicare providers and talk about the upcoming changes that are happening in the upcoming year. We also include health and wellness activities. We invite local vendors to join us where they can sell local products. And we also hope to have opportunities for vaccines. And of course, we do a grab and go meal. We, in preparation for this, work with WCKM Radio for advertisement of the event. And they also do a live broadcast on the day of the event as well. So I just wanted to share that with you, and also just kind of give you a heads up that it is in our budget for this year.
So on that Medicare insurance, and I know you only get to enroll one time a year, and there's so many different groups. Is there that much difference, or is it just down to personal interest, personal situation, or is there just somebody that's way better than everybody else? Or
So it's what we like to encourage folks to do is, because everybody's needs are completely different. People take different medications and such. And so the Medicare plans do offer different reimbursements, different co-pays and such, and they
really have tailored to your actual.
Yeah. So we do have a form that our staff give to the public where they can fill it all out, and it asks those specific questions of an individual. And so even in our office, what we can do all year is do a comparison of those plans to show what the plans offer for that person based on their needs.
So will you get repeat people every year that want to make sure it still fits them?
We do.
Good,
We do get
good, that's important if that's what it's supposed.
so on our Facebook page, we're going to be advertising the event, so you're welcome to go in and have folks, or you're welcome to share that out to individuals. I'd also just like to emphasize that we are looking for vendors, so we open up the parking lot area for people to come in and sell local products, various products. So if you know of anybody that would be interested in doing that, we're welcome to join us, and there's no cost to that person in the space. The next item is Office for Aging requires every local Office for Aging to hold a public hearing. And what I've done in past years, which I'm going to continue to do, is to hold our annual Office for Aging public hearing at the American Legion on October 19th. I'm going to do it in conjunction with the Washington County Council of Seniors Luncheon. So the numbers for that typically had 200 to 300 people participate, and I really like to focus in on that group to gather information and gather feedback for the planning of our next program year. So I do have flyers for it that I'm going to pass out. I would like to ask if we could have the flyers posted in various buildings that you have in your towns, kind of letting the community know that you're welcome to take. In preparation for the public hearing, I do an abstract document that speaks about all programs and services that we offer. That abstract is free for the community members to obtain before the public hearing. We do take information not only at this public hearing, but ongoing. So, so it's not just the end date being the end date. Questions from either of them? I do have another item. Literally right before I attended committee today, I received an email, and I did try reaching out to our purchasing individual to find out how to navigate this. So currently, our department contracts with 3 managed long-term care agencies for the provision of home delivered meals, and a couple of them do reimburse for congregate meals. So at this time, so for an individual who that's under one of the managed long-term care providers program, then the managed long-term care provider then reimburses us or pays us for that home delivered meals service. So I'm not sure quite how to navigate this. We did receive a request from Prime Health asking if they would want to engage in a contract with our department for home delivered meals. Not sure what it's going to be complete revenue on this contract. I'm not sure if I would need committee approval to engage in that additional contract.
I would say you do need. We would need more information.
Okay, as far as purchasing goes. Okay, so because it would be a revenue-based contract, and we're looking at probably an average rate of payment from the managed care. Right now, we receive $8.50 per meal with our existing managed care contracts. Obviously, we wouldn't go any lower than that per meal.
Is it something that has a timeline on it? Is there a deadline or time frame you have to work within?
So they have somebody that's going to be starting on their plan, if I'm hearing you correctly, on September 1st. So they wanted to reach out to us and engage in the contract so that way they can start paying for these individuals' meals. The person will still get meals whether or not we engage in the contract before then or during September.
So is it one person?
Right now, this managed long-term care plan has identified one person. question. I think committee approval. It's to start.
Okay, so we need a motion here to send it to finance.
Is this for, who needs to sign this contract? Is this something you sign, but anybody there in the board needs to sign?
I would ask the chairman of the board to sign.
So we have to go through the full board for approval. So we can have the chairman sign it in September.
Yeah, just referred out of this committee.
Finance.
Okay, finance, so we
Okay, I think Melissa said we could send it right to the board.
unless you want it.
To go to like.
Well, you said you had questions, so do you,
Well, it's the
just
first
your
step,
questions
but
need to be
so-
reviewed, or does that come? Maybe,
Staff is from the assembly.
right, I haven't heard
Might be
anything.
best, so everybody gets to hear it.
Okay, so motion to send to finance. So we have a second. Jim and Jay. Okay, any other question?
Exactly what is this motion? What is it? What are we doing? Sending what to finance
Authorize the chairman to sign the contract
for one person? Is that what I'm hearing?
for the agency.
To provide.
With what company?
Prime Health.
Prime Health managed long-term care insurance.
This contract, if they decide, if they ended up having 3, 4 more people on it, it's contract. So
Correct. So it wouldn't be just to serve this one
And how
person.
long is this going to?
The current contracts that I have are
The
open-ended.
one that we're moving on the motion.
I haven't seen the contract. The other 3 managed long-term care contracts that I have are open-ended with no end date.
So at this point, as finance, we could review and then send to the board. But the person's not, they're going to continue to get a meal
Correct.
until we review the contracts. There, any other questions?
If we have 3 other contracts. What differentiates which contract a person's on?
If I'm hearing you right, it's the managed care program that person participates in. That would negate.
Which group they're on?
And you have a copy of the contract?
I don't.
Okay. So once you have it, you'll be sending it to your secretary's office. Yes.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good news. All right. Good news.
Yeah. Good news. At least the first part of that. So we recently received our allocation dollars for our YDP funding, which is the traditional rec program funding. That remained the same, or basically the same as last year. The additional funding that we received is through the youth sports and education funding stream, which was new 2 years ago, where we funded, it was $6,000 or close to $7,000 for the Challenger program that we funded in 2022. And then last year we funded 5 programs, and the dollar amount was $16,000. For this year, they raised it to $22,146. So we have the ability to fund probably several programs in the county that is related to physical activity under that funding stream. And that funding stream is written into the legislation that from sports betting, online sports betting, and a certain percentage of those funds go to the Youth Bureau to be pushed out for youth sports and education funding. So then we also received a new funding stream that's called Team Sports for Youth funding, and that dollar amount is $27,244. This was a legislative add-on, so it may or may not be a continuation of funding. And this funding, we just had a webinar that explained vaguely the prerequisite about this program. So it has to be two or more people competing against 2 or more people with a physical component. So that, yeah, so that allows like a lot of town or village, not-for-profit, it can be a not-for-profit program, or it can be a community program. So things like little leagues or football programs or something that's team related, but who may or may not have their not-for-profit status would be eligible for funding under that funding. So we are planning on potentially, the state is still going to provide us with some documentation or like a little application for both sets of funding, and then we'll be doing some webinars. So for you guys, anybody in your town or village that any programs that serve youth, either through the sports, youth sports and education funding, which is kind of a little bit more broad, or the teams funding, send them our way, because we gladly give them information, see if there's something that they want to fund that they've not been able to. We've been told that the team sports for youth funding can be used to improve infrastructure, or, you know, kind of coaching, staffing, anything that they may need for the programs. So it's out there.
Can they be
Great thing.
ongoing programs, or do they have to be new programs?
So they do, for this, they can be ongoing programs, and even for the youth sports and education funding, they can be programs that already exist, but we can't fund, let's say, a rec program that's already doing those activities. They had to do something in addition to the activities that we're funding through our YDP dollars. So that's kind of with that funding stream. With teams, a lot of our youth recreation programs doesn't really fall under that team's dollars, because they're not in, you know, they're not having competitions. They're not a team sport activities that are recreation programs, or at least most, like maybe some of the soccer programs could qualify if they needed some new goals, or, you know, some of those types of things. So yeah, it's out there. I would say send anybody that you know who may be interested within your towns. We're going to try to target, certainly send information to our rec programming, you know, any of our not-for-profits that we have identified. We've been collecting a list to get it out there for this type of funding, to see who's interested or who might be eligible. Go ahead.
Would any programs through Department of Extension work?
Yeah, yes, we funded last year. We funded the hiking program that Cornell developed for our family hiking program. So that was funded using the youth sports and education funding. Now, as for the teams for youth, it has to be, I was thinking, correct, like shooting sports, like we were already thinking about whether shooting sports would qualify for this, because it's not, it's an add-on, and there's nothing specific in the legislation. Even on a case-by-case basis, OCFS would review it to see if they were eligible for funding after they fill out the application, and so then we would know. But yeah, I was thinking any of the youth sports, either between the youth sports and education funding and or the teams funding, we should be able to support those types of programs also, because there's physical movement with shooting sports.
We've got a really active and under-publicized track shooting program to all the many of the schools. Our gals got sent a kid to the States this year, as a matter of fact. But I'm thinking not in terms of specifically supporting them, even though the schools can't support them. We have to do it all through volunteers and donations and things. However, what we're trying to do is set up a scholarship for these kids coming out of our local schools that are going to Adirondack, because Adirondack is setting up a college track team. Would that's almost like a secondary use, but would that be something?
That's a great question.
Support the scholarship program?
Yeah, it's a great question. I know they had mentioned on the call that a program could certainly support scholarships for the fees associated with, for those that are underserved or can't afford to participate. So I'll specifically call and ask.
I
in
get
this
some more
particular-
information.
this- Yeah,
You know, the scholarship thing is kind of in infancy now, federations put some money into it. I'm putting some money into it.
right. Right, so I will ask about that,
Okay.
whether it can support that type of activity or that type of programming.
At age, where does youth, what's the cutoff? What do they consider youth? That's would be my question on that.
65.
Yeah, well, yeah, will be.
Sitting in this room, it's like, mature already.
I think it's up to 21.
So that would,
This
yeah,
purpose.
I just wanted to make sure. Because you took this, Well, my question, Bob, was anything with like, with dogs and things like that, is there any competitions that way? Or even horse people, is there competitions where it involves?
Of course, people are all crazy, but there might be some dogs.
Well, where there's more than one individual, that's what I didn't know, if there's any team thing.
They got away with that, look at that, nobody even better.
I mean, they still have, both sets of funding streams still have that wording that says underserved, but with no definition of what that is. So we have been able to be creative and, you know, so any program that applied last year was given funding.
I would think anything that is community based is underserved because they're tapping somebody's pockets, but even like the cheerleading, now they can go and compete.
Correct. So a
They can
cheerleading
afford it.
team could be something that could apply for this funding. And you're right, go to competitions and do some of those things.
Well,
Yeah.
Cheerleaders can go to.
How about
Yeah.
marching bands? It's not a sport, but it's pretty physical, marching band.
So a marching band theoretically could probably fall under the youth sports and education or youth sports and education funding. Not probably as much a team because they're not in a physical competition with somebody
Well,
else.
sometimes
Even
they
though
are.
it's a physical
Yeah.
movement, so they would still fall under that other funding stream. So between the two of them, you know, there's $50,000, you know what I'm saying? So that for our community, a lot of times it's a small pot of money that could be very useful to programming. So,
I mean, you look at, you know, like skiing, there's so many.
correct.
So the team's an individual sport. How do
No,
you-
no, it's great.
Racing.
So they
competition.
could have a race team, they have, they don't have, they have teams that you
When you don't
could.
race the team. Relay.
Yeah. Yeah, they
It's
race
like
as a
running,
team.
you race individually, but you're still a sport as a team.
Right, correct.
It's an individual team
Send a
sport.
team to the Olympics.
Yeah, money you
Like
watch
wrestling.
team try sports.
No,
Other
to
than
watch me
something.
win. Watch me win.
When you travel a long time.
And the numbers that we're still waiting on is the runaway and homeless youth numbers. We have not received those dollar figures yet. They're apparently in the Department of Budget, and we should be expected to hear what those numbers will be this week, which would be ideal for the budget purposes, but
The state might have run away with it.
correct, they may. So we're not sure what we're gonna get. We're assuming it's the same as last year for those dollars. So I will, as soon as we have develop a flyer and some information, I'll post it on the website or put a flyer in all of your boxes so that you can spread the word in your own communities. And then we'll have some web meetings online, informational sessions, so that people can think about what they could use dollars for. So that's on that note. On the secondary note is that Mike neglected to do a travel plan last year, apparently, because I've yet to find it. And I did have, I would like to send a couple people to the Association of New York State Youth Bureaus Conference, which is November 2nd and 3rd. It's in Syracuse. It would just be one overnight. We did have money in our budget line for both travel and for conference from this year because we were going to send somebody to a lifeguard training that we found somewhere else. So we do have dollars in there. However, we did not have a travel plan.
So you're requesting
So
us
I'm-
to give you
Permission,
send this.
yes,
But
permission
it's just like
to,
you have enough funds.
we
for it.
have the funds in our budget. And we would like to send a couple people to the conference.
When you on the plans might not have included anybody in the.
Including motorcycle rides. All right, and I think that's all I have.
Okay, do we need a motion for that?
We did.
You did. Okay.
Brian moved it, I seconded it.
Thank you.
We haven't had to vote.
Okay, we have all in favor?
Aye.
Thank
I
you.
missed that.
Thank you.
I was sitting right here.
You sounded good at it, but I wasn't sure what it meant. You don't. Okay, this is Roberta Davis from LEAP, and she is the Assistant Director of Employment Training.
Good morning. We're nominating two people for 3-year terms. The first is Laura Oswald with the Washington County Economic Development. She fills the necessary slot on the board in Economic and Community Development. Her current term ends on September 1st this year. If she is reappointed, her term would expire on November 1st of 26. The second person is Marianne Spezio from the Fort Miller Group Incorporated. She fills the necessary slot on the board in business. We're required to have a 51% of the workforce development board from the business sector. And again, her term expires on September 1st. And if reappointed, her term would expire on September 1st of 2026. Both of these people are Washington County residents. Both of them are very active in workforce. They're very active in economic development within the county and have been very valuable members on the workforce development board.
Thanks, Brian, Kathy, Jay, and Danny, have a question?
Yeah, by moving it, are reappointing them, or do you have to move it somewhere else? That's going to the full board. So they won't get appointed on the first. Will they? They'll be appointed on our board meeting.
I'm not sure that.
Well, fine.
Usually those people carry over.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, so all in favor? Thank you. Okay, so now Rob, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Who's on the right, who's our deputy director, and we're going to have an addition to our agenda. Another item came up after I submitted, so Linda's going to speak to me. To stick with the agenda, my first item is to recognize some revenue. This is related to the Joseph P. Dwyer Veterans Peer-to-Peer Program. That is a joint program with Warren County. Originally, the way this was, the funding was flowing on 100% through Warren County, and Washington County had authorized at the time for Warren County to sort of serve as a lead county, that they would issue an RFP, which we did, and that ended up getting contracted out to Adirondack Community College, as you know, and Jeremy Stewart has presented to this group before about his activities. But the reason to recognize revenue at this point is because the state has decided that they want to split this funding evenly between the two counties. So what we would be doing is recognizing the half of the funding in Washington County budget, and then developing a mirror contract with Warren County. It still be a joint program. It is still designated by the state as being a joint program for the two counties, but just splitting the funding. And just a caveat, the amount listed is 92.5, which was the original funding was 185,000 for the two by county program. However, I did find out that there was a cost of living adjustment added to it. So I'm gonna amend this figure to be 96,200. So it's a little bit higher.
Move the finance and seconds. Any questions on this? Yes, Melissa?
How does that work when the services or the programs are for both counties? So how is it the group of people that decide? I guess they have to be in agreement of the programs that are offered, or how does that work as far as the funding goes?
Well, Jeremy works very closely with Ken and with Denise DeRista, who's Ken's counterpart in Warren County. And there's also an advisory group that was put together that includes Ken and Denise. Sam Hall has been part of it, and some local veterans. So that group sort of meets and discusses
And then when they approve the
agrees.
programs, they just, I'm assuming the funding is just split half from each county?
Yeah.
That's how it's, okay.
So Al, and you're okay with this? The way it's going? Thank you.
Reserve the right to see it.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you.
Okay, and then I did have another item that came up, so the resolution form coming around. In June, I had come to the committee and amended the budget to allow for pass-through of some school-based mental health funding from the New York State Office of Mental Health. And it was at the time in the amount of $60,592. But I would like to request to amend resolution 167, which was the resolution that came out approving that funding. And to be 77,904. We have found out there was some additional funding that's coming through, and we want to be able to pass that through.
I'll move it.
That's they're getting a half of the total that we got between the two counties.
Yeah, it was actually a little different. It wasn't one of those deals where they split the funding evenly. It was based on if schools had services.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then my last item that had come up again that relates to a systems of care grant that we received. And this was for $25,000 from the New York State Office of Mental Health. Linda Wright, our deputy director, has been overseeing it. And a couple of issues have come up related to it. Some of the changes we wanted to let you know about. And then I thought, well, we probably should just do a brief overview of what the systems of care grant is. So Linda, you want to share?
I did bring some of the brochures that we developed for systems. Pass those out. Really highlighting the mission and the vision of systems of care. The systems of care is really designed to have a collaboration of all systems that for children and families in Washington County, and how we were partnered together to really look at access to services, gaps in need for individual family members, and also helping to enhance the voice of children and families within the community for service delivery for mental health services and supportive services for children and families. So we did develop pretty much a mission and a vision, and then we have guiding principles, and under those guiding principles the hope is that all agencies that support children and families will operate under that, and that's looking at youth guided, family driven, but also looking at least restrictive and least intrusive services under a trauma-informed aspect. And so when kind of considering that, we've been doing for the last year and a half, really kind of looking at pulling together partners and building up that partnership to build up an info structure. So we've kind of ebbed and flowed in getting people actively involved, and so one of the things that we'd like to do as a group is to partner with DSS and blend together a conference that's scheduled for October 5th. And so we're looking to reallocate some of that money out of the $8,000 to support that conference. That would be talking about systems of care, allow agencies to share their services, and this would incorporate involving school districts as well as community partners and providers to participate in the conference, and then also mandated reporting. How do we talk about mandated reporting and under a systems and care list? So that's part of that shift in money that we look to allocate. The other part is looking to consult with CCSI out of Rochester to help build a strategic plan. That the grant was for a year and they extended it for another year, but it ends in December. So we really would like to do some strategic planning on what's going to look like so that we can be sustainable. And then the last part would be continuing to look at training and how do we support our agencies and providers with training opportunities. And so we have about $10,000 under that to look at how do we support training and our web design. We're trying to create a website that would hopefully be accessible to not only family members but providers to learn about what services and supports there are in Washington County for children and families, but also knowing that we all partner together as one team.
In regard to the conference, we've been working closely with DSS, and Tammy was very pleased that we were able to potentially utilize this funding to support the conference. It helps her accomplish some of her training needs that she has for her department. We did submit a request to the Office of Mental Health because that wasn't in the original proposal, to repurpose some of the funding for this, and we did receive approval from them to do so. So it's consistent with what the state is approving, but I didn't know if you needed any local approval to host a conference, to pay for food, etc. So I don't know if we need a vote or request it. Yes, we do.
Moving to finance. We have a second. Yes. Any other questions for Linda and Carol?
Well, we heard break down the numbers, I guess, like that. Maybe that's what Alan's gonna ask. So,
Yeah.
There's a couple things. If you're gonna use the logo, you need, for the logo, you need the food waiver or authorization. And then I selfishly need to roll forward the unspent budget from last year. So your grants don't automatically roll over. So the part that I need sent to finance, because the committee can do the food part, right? And the part that needs to go to finance is the 22,378 that's left over from 22. We need to get that in your 23 budget. So you can start. And then the amount for the actual conference of all of it. Well, we just need to get the budget in there, and how he spends it is up to him.
So you do or don't want the breakdown of the conference expenses?
We don't need that.
Okay.
We're just gonna roll forward your unspent budget and you get to spend that however your grant is written.
So we need a motion regarding.
So if he's gonna use the logo, you need permission for the logo.
Are we using the logo, or is Tammy? I mean, it's a joint conference.
It's joint, so I'm not sure. Right now on the invitation, I believe local is on.
Yeah, if there's a chance, there's no harm in just getting the permission up front.
Sure. So is that a request we can make?
The logo and the food you can do together, I would think.
Okay, we have a second. Any other questions on that? Dan, that was.
No, you just passed over seconds to pass my head.
So all in favor?
Right now. Second people read the budget to finance.
Good. Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Thank
you. Thank you. Okay, do we have any other business or something for the board?
Commissioner Lauren couldn't be here this morning, but she has a budget amendment request for you. We met and talked to Melissa, Diane, and Brian. I think you all got the message that her code blue funding was approved at 100%, which was outstanding. It was just 928,000, I think is the number. So what we also want to do, they've been running their code blue expenses and revenues through the safety net account. And I think to better track and monitor those code blue expenses, we want to set up code blue specific accounts. So within that safety net department, we're just going to split out a revenue and an expense account. So I'd like a budget amendment set to finance for 928,000 revenue, 920,000 expense to recognize the code blue funding in its own line.
Any other questions? All in favor?
And I do want to thank Tammy for her hard work on getting that money approved.
Wonderful.
She was truly an advocate for that program. Yes, she did.
And that was the, was it the 2022, 23 going forward?
And
Is
she
that-
has a
that's right.
commitment.
Commitment for 24.
So,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so that was fantastic.
That's probably, is that in the state year?
Steve.
That's great. Okay, any other business? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
I'll call the IT meeting to order. Terry, join us, please. Thank you. Call the IT meeting to order. Need a motion to accept the minutes of the press meeting, Jim, second by Sue. Any omissions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Then Carrie, your reports.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, so reports for this month, I'll start with the cybersecurity report. Because that's one's on the top of the list. We didn't make any changes to the report this month, other than I added the second month in a row for the email, so we can kind of see the email statistics. I expect that this report will likely change next month with the change over to the new cybersecurity officer. We just haven't had a chance yet between vacations and everything to really make it. And I want to think it through and make sure that we are providing some things. So if anybody has any suggestions or anything you'd like to see that maybe you're not seeing, definitely let us know. But my goal is to be able to provide something to you folks that that's easy to look at, that gives you good high level information. I don't want to get in the weeds too much because I don't think it's probably productive, but for you to be able to see high level of what's going on with the most important things and the biggest cybersecurity threats in the county, I think are what we try to focus on and keep it a single page. I could probably give you a whole 30-page report if you want, but not sure anybody would want to read it. Yeah. Any questions on this report? Okay. The next report is the ticketing report. This is the standard report for each month. Does anybody have any questions on that one?
It doesn't look like any real big variances in percentages.
No.
ESS and IT are the big players, which is typical.
Yep. Yep, definitely expected. Okay.
Eric, it's so funny because I was at town council today and we're talking about IT needs and they were to
Oh, yeah.
And how they don't have.
Right, oh. For internet, you mean, or?
Just for connectivity to inside agriculture vehicles and inside, it's more like a radio dispatch type of thing.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that, no.
There's in our, because we're so, not, we had the technology. Yeah. And I looked at, how they're doing the business world is trying to do what they do. Health coverage.
Yeah.
And they have copycasting that's more. Yes, no. No. Inside your agricultural vehicles, do you have a way to check the nutrition and?
I don't know, yeah, my phone just was crying, I don't have
Say, I
any.
have a tractor 2 months, starts, but there's no connectivity.
No, I mean, to even get my phones to work at home is for,
So there's no,
we don't do anything,
computer access to.
no, we don't do anything.
I know like the vehicles, you know, like cars and those type of things do have like satellite connections.
We have a GPS satellite for some activities, but other than that, no, we don't do anything on the internet or the computers.
You can't, because you
No, you can sit there all day and sit in a circle. That's about it.
Yeah, if I had some more info though, I'd be happy to look into it. Yeah. It is interesting though, because they're really technologies and everything. So that's actually an interesting point, even in itself, as things to think about, you know, is that technology is in everything. And actually that was something I missed talking about was my item of interest on the cybersecurity report, which is something that came up in my personal life to a friend of mine who happens to be a dairy farmer. And she, you know, we're not all tech savvy, right? And the threats that usually you get, a threat comes in by email, or maybe it comes in by text message, or, you know, you get a link to a website or those kind of things. And this is not what happened to her. So she has a Facebook page. She posts daily, and the Facebook page has been very successful. Just, you know, not intentionally, it just kind of happened. She had a video that went viral, and a hacker came in, and in Facebook on the notification side, you know, you think in the app, you're probably pretty safe, right? You know, on the notification side, and it said your revenue, your ad revenue is going to stop unless you do this right away. And you click on the link, and every business page that you have out there now with Meta Business Suite, I learned a whole lot more about this recently than I probably ever really wanted to know. But then with the new Meta Business Suite, you have to take ownership of the page, claim ownership, and they essentially tricked her into giving ownership to these other people. So now this company in Pakistan owns ownership, and Facebook has absolutely no support at all whatsoever. Can't get it back. We put in copyright violation, trademark,
They
everything.
put two-factor authenticator on the backside, that's what they did.
Well, she actually, no, it's not that, because she has two-factor. That's how they couldn't get into her account. So thankfully she had that, so they couldn't actually get access. So she still has page access to make posts and do all of those things. She could even delete the page if she wanted to, but they claimed ownership of the page, which means they can take the ad revenue. And there's nothing she can do about it. She can't get it back. And it's awful. I've been trying to help her, and you know, we may be able to be successful at some point, but it's a battle. And for anybody that has a business page, I wanted to put it out of there as kind of an item of interest. Just be cautious and make sure you have ownership of that page, and be really cautious inside the app for anybody that uses it. That just because it comes through as a notification and it's not a website and it's not an email doesn't mean you can't still get compromised. And it just,
I lost my page, I literally page that the first page, but I can't get access back to any of the pages that I was administrator.
really?
Yeah. And they-
Did you create them?
Yeah, and they've gone through the claim process. Yeah. It's really frustrating.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No social
Yeah.
media, no problem.
Not on Facebook and everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, so thanks for mentioning that, actually, because it brought me back to that a little bit. But everything has technology. Cars these days, you know, farm equipment, I mean, everything that's out there does have some sort of technology in them these days, and they all are vulnerable. And especially the system, like manufacturing systems and some of the proprietary systems, probably like what they have in farm equipment and other vehicles, are almost always behind in developing and being able to come into the modern era with security and technology. I can't tell you, it's so surprising to me, even today, as we're looking at different software companies for next year for some of the departments to want to move to. And the first question I always ask them when it's hosted is, do you require MFA? Do you offer MFA? Oh, no, we're not there yet. What? How can you have something on the internet and not be having those things? That just blows my mind, but they're there and they're still selling them and people are still using them and still have their data there. So it's just really scary. So sorry, didn't mean to digress on all that, but
Big discussion on the okay, cool.
yeah.
Yeah. You're interested now. They want it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's important. It's really important. It's just that extra factor. It can be compromised, even MFA can, but so much harder. Yeah. All right, so the last report is the, yeah, I have it on everything for sure.
Yeah, kidding, yeah.
Yeah. Is the projects report. So you'll probably see it's a little larger because we actually have kicked off additional projects. We have a couple of new staff members that have started with the IT department that we're very excited about. Chris and Sean, to have them on board, and they are going to help us to start moving things forward a little bit faster.
Are they just excited?
I think so. I hope so. I do think so, though, and I think they're going to be a great fit for us. So a couple that we finished up were some AV upgrades, conference room upgrades for the grand jury room over in the DA's office, as well as alternative sentencing. And then we had to have a bunch of other projects that were moving forward. Some of the really big projects that we kicked off and are actually actively installing on. One is UPS replacements over in the LEC. It's a very large project with a lot of UPSs that tie into the Black Creek system, so for jail. And so that'll be a big project. Switching, we've started off the switching replacement of all of our edge switching, which means all the closets that are around for technology, we're going to be replacing all the equipment. And so that's a very big project as well. We started with building C this week, trying to get some of the new equipment installed and get it up and running. We're also working on rewiring the C building C, to bring them into the modern era with Cat6 cabling, so we can actually deploy IP phones and get that done as well. We're about 2/3 through that project, which I don't leave on the project list because it's, it's going on, it's literally a 3-year project, but we're 2/3 of the way through replacing all of the phones in the county with IP phones, which will allow us to then look at replacing the phone system in the future. So that'll be a really good thing, because ours is, say, 15, 18 years old. It's old. So that'll be something in the next couple of years that you'll see come through. But does anybody have any questions on this report at all?
What's the barn switching on hold for?
The barn switching's on hold for licensing we're waiting. So the barn project is, it includes printers, new printers out of the barn, so we can replace what's there, and then also replacing the switching out there. We also have to replace the wireless. The wireless project is one we just kicked off. I'd rather, since the barns are kind of removed, I'd rather not have to make multiple trips there. So I'd rather wait and have all the stuff and go once and just be done with it. So we're not inconveniencing people and we're not putting people on the road any more than they have to be, and just burning time.
That was a big time I heard with these things.
Getting better. Still a little bit delayed, but definitely getting better. Computers for sure have come back to pretty much normal than they were before, which is great.
Thank you. Any other questions for Terry? Any other business coming before the committee? Ben?
Yeah, and this is not really related to IT, but it's related to IT. And it's to do with code enforcement and their program that they use. Our town code enforcement was using the county's old program, which I think was kind of built here, or
It was,
whatever.
wasn't it?
And you've gone to a new one, and Terry was trying to explain to me. And she went right over my head. So you've got to bring it down a level and explain to me, is that something that the town can use through the county?
So I don't believe it's something we can do as a shared service. And the reason is that when you have a software like that, so that particular software is a hosted application, and then you have the database that's designed for the county. But that database contains all the county information. So in order for a town to use it, they would have to have their own database which would be a separate instance and would require a separate purchase from the software application.
Okay.
So it's possible we could certainly connect you with a vendor. They actually have been recently bought out by, it's the name of the company now, I think is ICC.
Yeah, but then we
Used to
have
be
to
General
pay for it,
Code.
right?
What's that?
Then we have to pay for it.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I don't want to do.
Yeah, and that's the problem we've run into, like, I know, with Al's program, with what we use for our financial accounting, we've had an outside agency that was interested. And you can't really combine the databases, because then, like, you'd have town data mixed in with the county data,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, and.
You're making
and-
sense to me now.
Yeah, and so,
The other crap is, if you're using the old software, we're not gonna support it anymore.
Pardon me?
Using the old software, the county did, we're not gonna support that anymore.
right, that's something Lisa, had built, and she's been able to keep using it, but the reason that we went away from it is it's just old and antiquated. So I would definitely encourage to take a look at it, and the software that we did go with, that John went with, seems to be really great software. It has a lot of power behind it. Even if you don't use all the features, I know that they do have a bunch of packages that are available.
Well, that's the point. I'm already paying for it.
Yeah.
My town is. The county's billing me to that. And I thought I could get the use out of it.
Oh, gotcha.
I think it costs the town of Easton $70,000 a year to support Washington County code enforcement.
Oh, okay. So not the software directly, but you mean,
Yeah,
Through,
well,
okay.
through taxes.
oh, I got you.
It's the shortfall, the difference between what they raise in revenue, what the budget for their department is.
Yeah,
You divide that out by the towns. My town's paying 70,000 for nothing.
I got you.
And I was thinking if we could get the use of that program, that would help.
Do you have like your own code enforcement officers then?
Yeah,
Oh, I got
I
you.
don't know how many are left. I think there's 5 or 6, but I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Yeah,
Or
Yeah,
at
that's-
least one.
it would definitely have to be a separate instance. You know, maybe the vendor could, give us a deal since we're referring it over, and it'll be a similar setup or something like that, but. Yeah,
Okay, well, I'll talk to you a little more about it. Thank you.
yeah, I'd be happy to help if I can. I definitely would encourage, all the towns. I think technology is so important that in the past, like in my previous life, because I've supported a lot of towns over the years, IT budgets are something that people really haven't had much of. And I would just definitely encourage everybody to consider in your town budgets, to look at a small amount every year, to have something in there every year to continue to grow toward a bigger picture, to keep growing out, so you don't end up with surprises or something that.
The bigger issue is cybersecurity insurance could have gone through the roof, for all of us.
And you can't get it these days. They've actually ruled they've just taken the small people out of the game, because you have to have all of these things in place. And we are getting closer from a county perspective as we continue to ramp up and get some good direction to be able to offer some shared services out to the towns in terms of IT support and those type of things. So I definitely do see that on the horizon. It's still a little bit away, but it is actually getting closer and looking more realistic. It's something we can offer.
Well, it
But
makes
it's-
sense if we could get on the same economic.
Right.
Like everybody changed their own phone systems and things like that, but if
Mhm.
we could have all done the same thing, would have been ideal. I know we talked about it, but everybody in the process of doing their own thing at that time.
Right.
So once they've spent the money and move forward, it's harder to get everybody to do the same thing. But eventually it may come to a point where we can work together and
Mhm.
everybody can pay their share. It might be a lot cheaper than doing it individually.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I guess I can't encourage, towns enough to take a look at your big picture. Here's what we want our entire plan to be. Maybe it's a 5-year plan, but at least then you can break it down and prioritize, say, we need to do this now. This can wait 5 years. It's not that critical for us, or those kind of things, but be able to have that holistic picture. Otherwise, I think it's easy to get sucked in, even with IT vendors. Oh, we need a phone system now. Somebody comes in, they look at, oh yeah, you need this. Now you just spent a whole bunch of money on network
Right.
switches and routing and stuff. And you think you're done because, oh, great, we spent all this money. It was really expensive. It was $30,000, whatever. Now we think we're done, but you've barely scratched the surface, and not really looking at it all. And you don't really probably know it all until you have something bad happen. Until you have a disaster, you get ransomware, and now everything you have is gone, and you don't have any backups, and there's no way to recover, and you're starting over from scratch and back on pen and paper, and it's very challenging.
It's kind of why we tried to do the laptops, remember that,
Mhm.
so that we were secluded with our emails at the county level.
right?
Everyone had their own county laptop and you could corrupt one another.
Well, and even from a town perspective, I mean, you can do a ton with just getting, getting a .gov site, for one, to be able to protect your website, because you don't want your websites getting hacked or compromised or those kind of things. Have it built out properly and then get an email domain with the .gov domain and set it up in, honestly, Microsoft 365. Set it up and make sure it's set up properly so you have MFA on everything. And then if you store all your documents up there, then it doesn't really matter what happens to your laptop. You know what I mean? Because everything, if you dropped it, if it got chucked out the window, everything lives in that cloud, which you can get to from any device. And that's one of the things I think is great with the county, and that's right. And that's why I guess I haven't been a huge proponent of, well, let's make sure we give everybody laptops or give everybody that, because the system or the platform we're trying to build is device agnostic. It doesn't matter how you access it. Everybody's a little different, but the beauty of it is that it's all here and it's central and it's backed up and it's.
So in that scenario, what do you think the estimate is for a town to do that? Set up everything with .gov and.
It depends on the town. Every town is going to be
It
different.
sounds like basically simplistic.
It is.
Is there like a pound cost that you pay to begin with and then add on?
Right, so like the Microsoft licensing, for example, I want to say it's about $12 per user per month, just to give you a ballpark on what the product will cost, and that would include, your email as well as your OneDrive application where you have a terabyte of storage, SharePoint, Teams, and all of those things to be able to set up. The big part is getting it set up. So how tech savvy is your town? Do you have somebody there that can do it? And if not, then you're looking at a consultant, being able to work with a consultant to get it done. And that's where a lot of the initial setup costs come from, is that consultant's time. But it's so worth it because it gets it set up, it's done right, and then you just maintain it from there.
But he's got one computer.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
he's all set.
there you go. But then the other part is getting people to use it.
You got more than one?
So,
You have anyone can operate a computer down there?
We try that. You can't get the system infected. Nobody's using
That's true.
I
Pen and
believe
paper.
wax the keyboard.
Pen and paper is good. Anything else? All right, thank you. We're adjourned.
thanks.
I'll wait for business later.
Next to do with your business.
My
Not your
business.
business.
Say your chat about it.
Huh?
Brian on this committee. I'd like to call this August 30th, 2023, Planning and Tourism Committee meeting to the order. First order of business is to accept the minutes from the July 25th, 2023 meeting. So moved by Dan, second by Brian. Any corrections? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. All right, first part recognized ARPA funding.
So, as discussed at previous meetings, we secured $100,000 and it was basically federal ARPA funding related to tribe lands that was to be paid in 2 installments. We actually received the second installment early. We thought it was going to happen next year, so we need to recognize $25,000 into my budget, which is funding the Lake George, Lake Champlain Regional Planning Board Technical Assistance Program, and then $25,000 of it into Melissa's budget, which funds the sign.
Yeah.
Got all that?
Moved by Dave. Yeah, we good got this. The money just came quicker. Moved by Dave. Second. Second by Brian. Further dialogue.
No, I just wanted to ask for my 25,000.
I did see both.
Let's get that sign put up out there.
Yeah.
It's spent.
I forget a lot of details. I definitely remember. You always carry.
That was one sign that's about 19 of it's in ball. Right?
That's the one.
You guys are funny. You guys. All right, all in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. All right, EDA, re-repeat.
So just to make everybody aware, EDA put out a program. This is a new program. It's probably a one-time only program. It's kind of another result of some of those ARPA funds that were floating around at the federal level. It allows eligible communities to apply for between $250,000 and $500,000 of what is effectively planning money. And then nationwide, subsequent to that, the ability to apply for $20 to $50 million to implement a project. There aren't going to be that many of those nationwide, and I would expect that that would be very competitive. But we are one of 2 counties in New York State who are actually eligible to apply for this funding. The funding eligibility is calculated by what's considered a deficiency in the prime age unemployment rate or employment rate. So what that means is, and it'll help to explain if I give the statistics. So we have a population of about 62,000 individuals. Of those, about 24,000 are between the ages of 25 to 54. Of those 23,000 at that age bracket, only about 17,000 are actually employed. So that essentially says that about 73% of the people who are of prime age working age are actually employed. So the point of the funding is to work out a way to get those people of that age group back to work, whether it's connecting them to existing jobs or creating new jobs, whatever it might be. So the program actually requires no match. And again, I should say we are one of 2 counties, but there are a few portions of cities and other small census tract areas across the state that are eligible. And then, of course, this is a nationwide program, so it will be competitive. Absolutely no guarantee that it will be funded. But the proposal is, because LEAP prepares or handles our career services, they manage the workforce center. The project that we have potentially for the application would essentially hire a business liaison to actually do more direct. We do not, either as a county or at LEAP right now, do a stellar job at connecting with our businesses. So the point of, we're very good when people walk in the door and say that they need help, but actually proactive outreach, what do businesses need? How do we connect you to people? Where are those resources? That's something that I think that we could be doing a better job at. So the idea would be, because this funding will pay for payroll, would be to use the funding to hire somebody and then potentially have them on board long term. Now, the intention is to have LEAP hire this position. LEAP is aware that the funding would only allow them to pay for the position for a couple of years. So I've asked that they, as part of the process, discuss that the position is going to be sustainable. It's not just a 2-year position. So as it stands, again, the project pretty much puts it in the hands of LEAP. However, either the county or LEAP can be the applicant, as could another related nonprofit entity. So my question to the committee is, we could, and therefore have more control over the project, act as the applicant and then use LEAP essentially as a contractor to deliver, or LEAP can be the applicant working and owning responsibility for all services. The idea would be, because Lake George Regional Planning Board has experience in administering these EDA grants, they would do the administration, but still you're going to create a program, you're going to have a set of goals. You want to manage that program and make sure that what you're getting out of it is what you expected. So the question of the committee is, does the committee have interest or the board have interest in the county being the applicant? Or would we prefer that LEAP is the applicant and I will just work with them to the extent possible?
I prefer that the county remain the applicant. That way we have autonomy over the program.
But you just, I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm trying to understand it. It says that you're going to create a position which will be funded, but at the end of the 2 years.
The position would still be hired at LEAP, even if the county is the applicant, we would still put the position at LEAP.
Right, but at the end of 2 years, is the position still with LEAP?
Yes,
And we will no longer get funding?
correct.
And what will LEAP do with that? Will they ask us for the funding to keep the position?
I have asked Shelley, because I basically gave Shelley an outline of the kinds of things that I thought could be done. I asked her to give me some dialogue and related to sustainability. What happens at the end of that 2 years? What does she expect is going to happen with that position? So she, as of right now, I mean, I haven't gotten that back from her, but just in general discussion, she believes that LEAP can handle that position long term. I did not ask her whether she thought she would ask for money in the future from the county, but I can ask.
I mean, I think it's good dialogue here regardless. We need to ask ourselves these questions. The next thing is, how creative can we be? Because I have an idea, but it might not even fit in this. A lot of towns and many businesses are having trouble with CDL licensing down in the cost and the creation of the schools. And I know there are towns besides mine, but I'm short one man because you can't find somebody with the CDL. And I talked to Phil Spezio, and he said that's becoming an issue everywhere. And I know a lot of the big companies like Fort Mill, they're looking, can we start some type of CDL?
We already have.
With the county?
So it's done through the Workforce Development Board, and that funding then flows through the career centers. So what it allows us to, so there used to be a school up here, now the only one is down in Albany. To my recollection, the cost of the training is somewhere between around 8,000 or so. So basically, the career center for the eligible individuals can pay for that training. We have the career center has already put several people through that licensing program.
Well, who pays for it?
It's paid for out of WIOA funds, which is the Workforce Board funds. It is that money that funds the career center.
So then there's no cost to the applicant?
Correct.
That's good to know.
So you might want to talk to Jimmy Bowman. Because no, you can tell me, there's a program you can take online for the course, it costs about $25. Even if it accepts this qualification up for the classroom training, then your CDL driver at the town can be the trainer for the driving part.
Right, he has to qualify.
There's a 45-hour course, which I believe Jimmy can do, is qualified to do. So you can basically, for $25, hire your own people to drive. teach them to
And
drive.
so the county does provide that service to the town.
I don't know that the
Well,
county
It's
provides
county,
county
it's in the town can do it themselves.
there might be a way to come up with something like that, but there's a lot different ways, but like for the towns might be able to do that with the county, but I think your businesses are gonna have to go with it.
Yeah, so in order for them, individuals to qualify for that training, they have to meet the WIOA, like it has to be disadvantaged youth or low income, the thresholds for the individuals that the Career Center can serve. So that process wouldn't work for somebody who wasn't income eligible or otherwise eligible for the services that can be funded through the Career Center.
But you're already, more and more companies are starting their own training programs.
So there are two huge shortages in the area. One of them is the machine tool. And CDL has been acknowledged as a huge shortage for the past 2 years. So, yes.
When the grants applied for this job, and it's been 2 years, I'm sure there's gonna be a list of quantifies that it's actually working. It's 2 years, are you gonna know?
Enough to know.
Right, are you gonna keep carrying a position that really is having, I'm being a little jaded because I think those numbers are skewed. They're either working and not showing up on paper or they don't want to work. So I can't believe with the amount of jobs out there with that age group is at.
Well, so, this is a whole other,
I'm sorry.
very long discussion. So you're right, but one of the points of this grant is, yes, there are people out there who are not working because they don't. But there are also people out there who are not working because there are barriers to employment. And that's typically because they can't get childcare or the cost of childcare exceeds what they're going to make going to work. It's transportation issues and homelessness is apparently becoming an increasing problem. So this program is supposed to figure out ways to address those barriers to unemployment. So, for example, one of the things that I had suggested that we think about is that we work with the Adirondack Child Care Institute to find a way to partner with employers to maybe create an employer-based daycare, or work with employers to help do a shared carpool program or bus program or whatever. So if those are the barriers that are keeping people who want to work but can't, those we should be paying attention to. I'm not sure how much we can do about the people who don't want to work.
I had a question in regards to the number there, unemployed. Is it unemployed, not looking, or is employed? Is there, if you work 10 hours a week, are you considered employed?
So I don't know how these particular numbers were calculated. What I can tell you is that through Department of Labor, they consider individuals who have not looked for work, I believe it's within the past year, they don't consider them in the unemployment rate.
Correct.
So to me, unemployment numbers are skewed no matter what.
Right.
There's just, I would include those numbers in unemployed because again, there are people who maybe have been out of the workforce for a couple of years. It might be as simple as, I don't know what the first thing to do is. I don't know whose door to knock on. I don't know where to go to get help to figure out how to get a job.
That's it.
Could this be a way to get another person in your office so that you could open up your department a little bit?
If the county was the applicant and the county wanted this individual to be hired by the county, then yes, but keep in mind, it's short-term funding and it's not long-term funding.
My concern is that if the county's the applicant, is what type of work is that on Laura is already very. I don't want to have to inundate with work that some other organization tries to come.
It works just like JTPA, we contract with LEAP and it's send them a check. We do it up, we already do it.
We already do it.
It's not that bad.
No, I know that, but I actually, I do have some agreement with what Dave is saying, because again, it is my opinion that both as a county and with LEAP, while we do a really good job at providing services to those people who ask, we could be doing a better job at working directly with employers to help bridge those gaps.
If I only knew somebody who was on the workforce development board, I would encourage them to do that now, whether they could be granted.
I don't know anybody. That's
There's a familiar name.
somebody else. But yes, I think it's important, and yes, if the county was the applicant, it would mean that I would have to extend some time into making sure that that it was making a difference. And that, you know, we were moving in a positive direction.
And I think in the conversation that we had with Shelley, because it is acknowledged that there is a space there or a gap where maybe that isn't being serviced
Right.
as well as it could be. So we think that this position would kind of help LEAP maybe be able to provide those services a little bit better to get up to par and to be able to help the county a little bit more with the workforce development. So this might just be a stepping stone to kind of get things in order, and then maybe
I
it
agree.
won't fall on Laura.
And in our discussions, her intent is to make this a long-term position, but she's still, I mean, this grant is due in October, but we're still trying to figure out what it looks like and how it works. But we need to resolve the technical, who's the applicant, who do we have to have permission from, et cetera.
But additionally, more on the workforce development, board is going to have continuity and some information about this part of it. Because the county does get exposure to some control, but without burdening more with more time.
Well, I'm gonna ask the question in a different way, because they'll tie together. So if we do this, with them as the applicant person there, whatever, how does that work in reshaping your office? So you want it, so it all meshes together?
So if, again, kind of going back to depending on who the applicant is, one way or another, workforce is something that if I could get out from underneath broadband, I would like to find the time to pay some attention to. If LEAP has this individual, regardless of whether we're the applicant or they're the applicant, I would like to create a communication pathway between the two so that we're not all off going in different directions and that we're all on the same page in terms of what is being done, who we are helping, how we are helping them, etc.
But of course, with you on the board, you'll have that link in. But I'm just trying to look at going forward in your office. How is the best way to do it in your opinion?
In terms of who the applicant is, you mean, or in terms?
The whole picture.
If ideally, if I had the resources and could take some of the things off of my plate that are on my plate right now, I would like to be more directly involved with networking with the employers and working with LEAP to help create the kinds of connections that we need in order to get people working.
So it doesn't matter at that point who the applicant is, or it does? That's what I'm trying to get.
It only matters in that if we are the applicant, we have control and say. If they're the applicant, unless you create, if they're the applicant, we don't, other than whatever agreements we might want to create, it's their project.
Well, okay, so with you on the board, does that give you enough influence there so we still are in control?
Well, me being on the board, I am a recipient of reports. That doesn't mean that I control or work with the process that happens before the reports. What I hear about is what's already happened. I am not part of
Those are
it.
more like audit than purchasing.
Correct.
That's what I thought.
Go ahead, Sue.
LEAP right now, the workforce is not research of the county.
The majority of WIO funding
downstairs, but we had the conversation with, you know, how it works with other counties. And this would be more directly through Washington. So the control would actually come through.
So they are very specific. So for example, Dr. Duffy from SUNY Adirondack reached out to me and said that she'd like to be involved. They are very specific in that the only entities and agencies that can participate in any kind of programming must be within the service area, the borders of the eligible area, which in this case is Washington County. So for example, SUNY could create programs or resources to be delivered in Washington County, but SUNY couldn't create classes at SUNY because it's outside of the borders of Washington County. So whatever partnerships, the services have to be delivered within the county.
But
Laura, traditionally, wouldn't an application from the county score higher than an application from you?
Probably. They also give you the ability to create a consortium of partners, but I think that's more complicated than the
Right. I'm just thinking scoring wise, we probably will score higher than a leave application would on its own.
Yes, marginally, but yes, probably higher.
So it'd be beneficial for the county to administer this.
Well, the county isn't going to administer it.
And then
Yeah. Let me be very clear.
Would like to see us.
So we would
We'd
literally,
like us to be the applicant and have them administer.
we would be passed through.
I'll move that.
What do you think?
Now we're in the dialogue. Go ahead.
You already sold it.
No, I mean, either way would work. I think it is slightly more beneficial if the county is the applicant. Because you know, if LEAP is the applicant, they're probably going to be happy to make an agreement with us to be part of the process. It's simply that it's a little bit cleaner and straighter if it's the county. That's all.
All right, motion on the floor. Favor, second, saying aye. Or any further dialogue?
can you get a second?
Yeah, Jay seconded. Yeah. Any further dialogue? Any questions?
I don't know where I see it, so, but I don't have enough, and right now questions.
So that if Mr. Shaw, if it helps out, this is just for the application. You have another way to the apple forward.
Well, no, wait a minute. For the applicant, we're carrying those responsibilities, right?
Right now, you're just telling her it's okay to
I'm
apply.
not asking you, I'm asking her.
The responsibility at this point is to write the application. So I have all,
The application gonna say who's responsible for pieces of it.
yes. So, but we already have that worked out. So the idea will be, remember, there is zero match, so there's no finance commitment. LEAP will be the partner providing the services. The regional planning board will do the administration. My role will simply be to help create the ideas that go into the application that are going to be part of the program. And to maintain communication with LEAP that activity is happening and we're seeing some benefit from it.
All those in favor, saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Now, so 3. Somebody better vote for
Yeah. Affirmative, all right.
it, and I can say. I didn't want to sink the ship.
Got that, Deb?
Being a code.
At the risk of being smacked, if it's just the application. Yeah. Not, never, but you know how long you've been here? Everybody, when they take the first bite, they always go for the second bite of the
No, sometimes the first kills them. You don't get a chance at the second.
I have to do that. So is there anything you need pressing?
Are we gonna have a quorum to vote on those things?
I
'Cause
think
have-
so. It gets tighter.
We just have to give you much.
And all the contract changes shouldn't take that long.
Okay, well, all right, so Labella contract changes.
As previously discussed, 5 years ago, we got a grant from LWRP to develop a 7-mile trail from Fort Ann to Wick. We had considerable problems with CP Rail, 5 years of negotiations, nothing happened. Meanwhile, we also got an additional $150,000 from Canal Corp. So we have renegotiated that 7-mile trail section down to a 2-mile section that extends from the Comstock area by the prison about 2 miles out to Ryder Road. There are two
That would be north, right?
north, right? There are 2 individual parcel owners that we are kind of in final negotiations with in terms of there is a very small section of privately owned land that would need to be crossed. But what we're going to need to do, because the project has changed considerably, is redo the original contract was with Chazen, who are now Labella. So it is simplest to simply complete the old contract, which we've spent about $81,000 on a $395,000 contract. So we actually had $314,000 left of that money to change. And the cost is going to go to about $210,000. So that basically will leave us for more money to use in construction, provided that we can finalize. We have to finish this. We only got an extension to January of 2025. So the final design, engineering, and whatever portions we're going to construct have to be done next year because they've already told us they're not going to give us another extension.
And what's that going to help with construction's going along? That same quarter.
So to try and draw you a picture, if you recall what the area looked like, the trail actually goes over Route 22 along Old State Route 4.
That's where construction is going. CHP.
So that portion of it is, and we had discussions with Canal Corp about this. There's really not a lot of value in spending money putting down trail on an area that has very little traffic on it and is already paved. So there's actually very little that's going to be done on that actual section of road. There's about a mile as it crosses over onto Canal Corp land that has some land that's perfectly suitable to just put down stone dust. There's a couple of areas we might need a little bit of boardwalk, and Canal Corp wants to work with us to put some kind of an amenity. So the majority of the work will actually be done on Canal Corp lands and not that road, because there just wasn't any value in spending money on an almost unused road that people can.
So what do you need from the motion to?
I need a motion to allow Mr. Henke to sign the contract.
Got
Moved by Brian, second by Dan.
Which includes a waiver for procurement. Yes,
Good point.
that's what I heard you say.
Any other dialogue? All those in favor, say by saying aye. Aye, opposed? Carried.
So I have a follow-up question on that. How much of that is going to go along the rail line down?
The entire trail was supposed to parallel the rail, but we're going to be building as close to the canal edge as we can. And there's quite a distance at that point between the edge of the canal and the rail. It gets tight closer towards Whitehall. Well, you and I should talk later, and I want to convey that to Chazen, because yes, that will impact.
Well, the trail might be up before the other. Okay. They're tearing up.
Just going up next to him.
Slow down.
Lord, when, at what point you even need the grant money brought forward and you? This is from a few years ago.
Well, it was, did we move it over from last year into this
I don't
year?
think it's been brought in 23
It may not have, so we have not written any checks to Chazen this year, so we're gonna have invoices by the end of the year, so yeah, that money would have to be.
So do you want them to send it to finance today, get that in place?
Moved by Dan.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Moved by Jay. Second by Brian. Any dialogue? All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Al.
Okay,
Keeping us straight and narrow.
thanks.
issue.
Sorry, I thought that had already been moved over. Okay, Bald Mountain Solar, this one's quick. So we got a lead agency notice that went through the planning agency. There is a 20 megawatt system at the corner. It basically is by County Route 77 and Thompson Road. The town of Greenwich wishes to be declared as the lead agency. And so we have, basically an official notice that says we don't object to the town of Greenwich being the lead agency, that we need Mr. Hickey to execute. We have.
So
Moved by Dave, second by Brian. All in favor, or any dialogue? All in favor, say by saying aye. But you have dialogue, Jack? Yeah.
Well, I just. What I found out, and you put that head on it, some of this stuff, I know the lead agency, some of it's supposed to go through the. Ag Land Protection Board, because these are on stuff that's in ag districts, and I think that's an ag district there, so.
It falls into the portion of that, I believe, Ag District 6,
Yeah.
is what we talked about yesterday, yeah. So,
And then down the road, did the governor ever sign where we were supposed to, counties get reimbursed for losing ag land through these programs with the solar? Just curious, because there was talk on that losing ag district land was supposed to get reimbursed some.
right.
So I'm not sure. What I can tell you is that one of the required documents that comes into the planning agency, so through GML 239, there's certain things that, like, if you hit any of these buttons, it has to go to agency. One of them is proximity to Ag Lands Ag District. So there's already documentation in the application. I'm not sure at what point that gets forwarded to the Ag and Farmland Protection Board. I will have to look at that. I don't know that we've been doing that. Like, we have the document that says it potentially impacts, and we're looking at potential impact, but we have not, to my knowledge, actually forwarded those.
So see, there's, right, and they get reviewed even by the county, but they're also reviewed by the state, because the state, the only thing that can ever stop the solar is if the ag commissioner deems that some chunk of land is so important to agriculture, and it's happened once or twice. I mean, this is not the case, but I'm just saying that it's funny, we get all these things that are going, but we never really hear them in the committees, sometimes that we're supposed to hear.
Right.
And I wonder if they.
I will check on what the process should be for that, because again, I don't believe it's something that we have been doing. And if we should be doing it, we need to be doing it.
I get you, Steve, I'd rather you should not the part of the land that's being used as the lowest productive, lowest.
And I know it is, I know right where it is, because
And then secondly, sheep grazing is gonna be, so still is that use.
yeah, I'm not fighting against it, it's just that.
Generally,
Generally,
it might be
some
up.
of this stuff hasn't been going through the steps. Yeah, pretty wet down.
It is.
In the last 2 years, this is the big. This is. I haven't seen many of these.
Yes, so well, like the Great Britain down in East and
That
that one never went through.
That one never went
Never
through
did.
planning agency, that one never went anywhere.
Right. Yes, go ahead, Laura.
The Ag Commissioner will sometimes send a letter to the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, which we, is usually presented. Whenever we have a meeting, I think I've only seen two in the last, years where they've had a question. Where they brought it forth to the Ag and Farmland Protection Board.
Because I had a phone call because they thought I was still chairman here 6 months ago on one that was proposed, and I knew the person down in Ag Markets, and they're going, well, you should be answering this, this, and this, so the commissioner knows whether they need to be looking closer at it. And well, we never gone through any of it, so never been aware of it.
I will check on that again. I'm not sure whether the process is that we send it to Ag and Markets, or whether the developer sends it to Ag and Markets and then Ag and Markets notifies us.
It kind of indicated that if the Ag Land Protection Board had some real concerns with the land that it was going on, they were to make comments to the Ag Commissioner, and his committee that sees.
Well, nonetheless, I mean, I think it would be helpful for the Farmland Protection Board to have notification of the, just for information purposes, if nothing else.
But yeah,
So,
then again,
yeah.
there was the thing too, on NYSERDA supposedly gonna give a kickback to the counties that were losing ag a bit. I mean, if we're due some money down the road, that would be nice too.
So should that come from planning agency? Should, when we give our comments, should we?
That's what I'm gonna have to determine, whether there's a formal process as to how it's supposed to be referred. Is it from planning agency to ag plan?
Yeah.
To Farmland Protection Board, or can it go straight from planning agency to board? I'll have to check on
And
that.
like I say, most times the commissioner, like the one he looked at, it was like gonna be a 2,000 or 3,000 acre one right in the center of the Finger Lakes, great throwing all that.
Right, right.
And it was really gonna impact right here. He said. No, it's not.
All right, two more things. The 250th quintessential, whatever we're calling it. Yeah, that's the one. So I had asked the committee to come up with a ballpark budget regarding what kind of funding they were gonna, basically what the activities were likely to be, and just a general ballpark of what funding is, because as I am preparing the tourism budgets, I have to determine like what the impact of that is going to be. So essentially, between 2023 and 2024, for a variety of things, they've estimated budget needs of, it's somewhere around $8,000. So I asked the chairman of the committee, is it the intention of, is it going to be the ask that the committee is asking the county to fund all activities for this celebration, or are there going to be other fundraising efforts? He said there will be other fundraising efforts, but they are specifically looking for help in the first 2 years until they get going.
Is there stuff there we can help them with?
Well, so that's, so here's, so this is, I mean, my thinking is like, they want things like design a website, etc. So a lot of this we can do for them and can probably do more cost effectively.
Yeah.
But there's some things we then are gonna have to make a decision, like, so there's a Knox Trail reenactment cost. They need to go get porta potties and things. I don't really want to be finding those for events and all of that. So what my question to the committee is, we will take on within budget as much as we reasonably can and with the agreement of the board. But typically, we have not ever just handed a check to a nonprofit organization for activities. What I need from the committee is guidance on, are we going to want to do that? Or is everything that they ask for going to have to come through and be managed by my office? So they have set up the Washington County Historical Society. Plus, I have not in any way said we're going to 100% fund all of this. I just asked them for a budget so that we can determine what's reasonable for us to do. But theoretically, I need to know, are we potentially just cutting a check to them, or is anything that we do have to be services we can do?
I don't prefer to cut a check to them because we've already made that very clear to our other annual events, and we're going to talk about that more in September at the event. It is, you know, our whole point is we can assist with advertising, promoting the event, getting you, you know, those tools. But I do see here like the food, you know, other things for the event. I mean, if they come with a specific budget for that event, I don't see where, you know, cutting a check for that specific event. But the other pieces, you know, that we can be more efficient on, I think.
Like, you know, we have printers at so, and I'm not even sure why they want letter, you know, but I will have conversations with them about that. We already have resources in place that can help them with some of this.
Right.
Some of this, I think they should be securing funding from other sources.
Right, true, yeah, I mean, if they're talking $2,000 to put on the event, you know, to put on the reenactment.
And again, this is just through 2024.
Right.
Chairman, I would ask the committee, we used to have a line item in our budget. It started at 5,000 for the Historical Society. I think we cut it back like 2,500 to zero. maybe one of the options is we restore that $2,500 historical society line item. And they then can deal with all of the nooks and crannies and weeds. And
At one
we just
point,
make the contribution.
we funded Lakes to Locks, Historical
Right.
Society, there were 3 or
And,
4.
there was a whole bunch of not-for-profits that we had line items for it.
Some of them are still in there.
Right,
But
well, no, none of
there's
them are.
not-for-profits who actually-
All of them are gone. So my point being that if we reinitiate that policy,
Oh, so we're-
we have to be prepared for a discussion.
There's a couple small ones.
Historical Society still in there, the Federation.
Historical still in?
It is?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, it's not in my budget.
No, it's.
No, it's
No, it's
some
not.
line item.
Oh, okay.
the Federation has a line and
For some reason, I thought historical.
some
I
else,
apologize.
Lakes to Locks.
We-
They still-
it was there.
they did
So
not-
we
Yeah, right there.
When we get to do,
As far as this involvement, I don't think we have any responsibility. The job's very, trying to find more help for her. You don't need to give her any orders.
And they've got hands, I mean, there's, 5, 6, 7 guys on this committee that, can certainly.
17.
Said, geez, okay, 17, sorry, sorry.
We've had one for each
Well,
town.
I heard more about it. And I think their major concern was that Washington County wasn't involved.
But we're going to be involved. The promotion of this is gonna come from Washington County Tourism.
Right.
They're gonna get a major boost just because of our tourism promotion. We're gonna get them in front of, places they weren't even thinking about being in front of. We're gonna get them in front of, individuals that are looking to come up to Washington County from downstate, from western part of the state. Like, they're not gonna have that reach.
But it's more than just our county. There's other counties that will. Help. They just don't want to be left in the dark, I guess.
They don't want to, I get that, but that's the support we're gonna bring to them.
So. The backstretch. What are we doing on that this time? They did a total-
They have a Knox Trail reenactment. Again, these, I just asked them to give me ballpark over top level.
Well,
So
what is their reenactment? Is that they bringing everything with horse-drawn equipment again like they did 50 years ago?
I don't believe that they've planned it to that extent because they don't actually have a budget for that. as of
And they're gonna be, the reenactors that we have in the area, the reenactors that reenact up in Lake George also reenact down in Bennington, also reenact out in Oriskany. Like,
Yeah, but the reenactment wasn't just that. They actually brought in draft horses,
Yeah.
farmers and everything to actually tow cannons. I remember it.
and I get that, just saying with this being the quintercentennial, is
Yeah.
that right? It's not just for, Washington County, it's for all the entire state. So what I'm saying, your reenactors are gonna be stretched.
Well, yeah, but so like they did a segment. So everything got trucked in there and they did a segment there and then the next county took over and did the next segment.
They are looking at a Skeensboro reenactment in 2025, and they have about a $4,000 budget for that. Again, there's no details as to what it is, but they do have one reenactment in here. There's more that would be planned, and they're talking about a Knox Trail reenactment, but there's no budget for that. So I'm assuming they're still working that out. So again, we don't need to have the theoretically, because I am going to be working on tourism budgets. I just need to know, do I put a separate line item for a direct fund to them and then work with them to help determine what we can take care of for them?
I think Al's right on, if we work that direct line out for the Historical Society.
I think if you wanted to bump.
We may have to bump it for that.
Right.
It might be a separate line.
Right.
Maybe a separate line so it goes back when it's.
Right, that way they can worry about the stuff where.
Yeah.
But we.
Will help make it the quintessential.
I'll claim.
For sure.
Outreach reserve.
Do we need to vote on that? You want to vote on that, aside the finance?
That's for your budget discussions, probably.
It'll go in my,
Do that.
probably at budget time. I just
Yeah.
want to know.
Why it's there, how it's there and is it like.
It's gonna be a big, glaring light to certain supervisors are gonna see $2,500 on 1 year, whereas 0 last year. It's gonna come up, so.
No, it wasn't
Okay,
zero.
the
I
cost
just-
of-
Once it's zero, it might go to 2,500, so I don't know what the numbers are. And it's according to how much money they actually need and we're.
Right.
There used to be, just
You
a
won't get
list
your
of,
carryover from that.
sorry.
You just won't get your carryover from that.
That's why I'm wondering if there should be a separate line for that actual event, so it goes away when the event's over.
Well, that's, I agree. I think you should when you do
You know,
the budget.
you boost it for this,
Right,
then we're back to the normal.
right.
line.
Yeah.
Even if it
No,
gets
There's
an increase.
a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Well, and
That's
it would
kind
be,
of where-
it would be budgeted in probably whatever number we decide on in the 24, 25, and 26
Yeah.
years.
That's right.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with
That's
that.
kind of
We don't need
where-
we don't need to vote on that. You're gonna work on that during the budget process. Okay.
Well, I don't want any.
All right, last thing. The USDA grant for yes,
Let me say that.
it is.
Wait, yeah.
Today. I'll come up with something next week. The USDA grant that went through Congresswoman Stefanik for $1 million for, yes, I'm gonna say that word, broadband.
Yeah, okay, get till next year, right?
So we owe USDA documents on September 28th. So again, this will be a later discussion. But as you know, I have separated out those addresses that are likely to only be able to be served by Hudson Valley Wireless. And the intent of this $1 million grant will be to purchase equipment that's necessary for the household and to upgrade the towers that deploys the signal, because we have to be able to create a signal strength of at least 100 by 20 to be able to use this funding. So there are just over 500 addresses on this list. The individuals will get about $1,000, households will get about $1,000 worth of equipment. And then the balance of funding will be used to upgrade the towers so that they can deliver the signal at those strengths.
Should we build a tower?
We aren't building any towers. We basically, the money will go to Hudson Valley Wireless to go climb their own towers to put up their own equipment. So this has been sort of like a lot of back and forth as to how to make this work, as you know, which addresses go with which. But our due date to get the documents, which include, it's a lot of standard certifications, civil rights compliance, policies, et cetera, that our best chairman will have to sign. And then there will also be an operator agreement that is the agreement between the county and Hudson Valley Wireless in terms of what they're going to deliver and what they're responsible for. My difficulty is I had originally planned, because they're still finalizing some of these documents, on having this to committee for the September 19th board meeting. But in order to vote to accept $1 million grant, the board meeting is on the 15th, 4 days before, which means that it would hit the October board meeting, but the documents are due September 28th. So I'm not sure what to do here, because we need to be able to, for Mr. Hinkie to sign the documents and the operator agreement. I'm still planning on presenting it all to you on the 19th, but it has to be at USDA by the 28th.
So, why couldn't we give approval of the board meeting? Sign it. We'll have all the
That
data.
would, you will have the details 4 days later, if that's all right.
This has been.
Well, and the attorney, because I will definitely have Mr. Wicks review.
It's the same thing that happens most documents. You approve them, double the details, and you find something that can't live with it. Take another course.
Right.
It's a problem.
Anybody else?
Okay, that's it, I'm done. See, you said it was the last thing.
No, it's not. Al?
Oh.
I'm actually glad that we talked about grant rollover fund, because I forgot we need to get the septic money into your budget too.
Is it in my budget or is it in Melissa's budget?
So moved by Jay. Second by Dan. All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
care of sewer and plumbing.
Anything else to come before the committee?
Going once.
All right, we adjourn. Thank you. Wait.